Yeah, I'm glad to have you on, and I'm glad to have everybody coming in. It's first time, and being able to have the opportunity to talk Lions football right after the game's over. Kurt, I really appreciate you coming in. We got Curt Steele coming in from Detroit Lions on the Prowl. Appreciate having you on the show, man.
Thanks. I really appreciate that. And
Yeah.
to my people, what up, though?
What up, though, is right. Hey, listen, man. This is a show I've been starting. It's called More After the Game, and we just want to be able to talk a little bit about Lions football, talk a little bit about everything that happened, man. I wanted to get your take first and foremost. I always like to talk to our guests and have them come on and give a little bit of insight and a little bit about their feelings, man, about this game. This is a tough one. This was a tough one for many levels, but I want to see what your thoughts are on this past game.
It was gut wrenching. I mean, little backstory. I had a migraine all day yesterday, and this game did not help whatsoever. Especially the end part of the game. You know, I think we caught some breaks. I think a couple of drop passes by Hollywood Brown, but we didn't capitalize on on our opportunities. But still, it's just a heartbreak at the end of that game where we put ourselves in a position to win, and then to have something like that happen at the end of the game where you have a former NFL referee saying that yes, that play at the end should have been a delay of game, but they missed two penalties on that play. Actually, the right guard false started as well before the delay of game. So there were two penalties that were missed at the end of that game, and nobody caught it. Nobody called them. You have the tremendous effort by Tucker to kick that field goal and to have the doink. I call it the doink record because he hit the crossbar and bounced over. I mean,
I've never seen that. I mean, I've seen it a little bit closer, but not from that distance. Typically, it bounces and it hits back. And for it to take that, I mean, that's the Lions bounce, right?
Yeah, that's the Lions bounce. It's just gut wrenching. I feel bad for the players because the players really fought hard that game. I mean, they really played tremendous. You look at the shorthanded. I won't say shorthanded. Just the inexperience, right? Because we're not. I won't say we're shorthanded, but we're inexperienced, especially on the back end. With the young, very, very young secondary, the youngest secondary in the league right now with all the injuries. When we were already the second youngest, and then with all the injuries, now we're the youngest secondary in the league. And then you look at the young linebacking core, bringing in Derek Barnes, and Anzalone's not that old himself. Even with the most veteran guy in that linebacker core right now is Reeves Maven, because, of course, Jamie Collins, they have decided to move on and hold him out for various reasons. But if you look at that, we have a very inexperienced back half of our secondary, because Anzalone, he has some experience, but he wasn't a solidified starter in New Orleans. He didn't get that till he came to Detroit and became a captain. So
all right, let's do this then. I'm gonna do this one for you. Right, I know we got people that are gonna be starting to join us as we start to go forward. I'm gonna set the stage. Let's reset. Let's hit the reset button.
Okay.
Let's start with we'll clean our mind. We're blank slate. You wake up, right? Sunday. We know we had the Green Bay game. Seemed like there was an opportunity there. We saw some things that happened that were positive. We saw this team, again, go out on the road in the division. We hear that. That's been going on since I played. Mm-hmm. And they had an opportunity. It got away, ended up losing. What did your day start like? Take me through that. Now, everybody gets ready. You're a diehard Lion person,
right?
Fan,
definitely.
Person who follows this team. You invest your time. You invest your money. You invest your energy.
Right.
So take me through your day. That's what I like to hear about first and foremost. As a former player, when I'm talking to Lions followers and Lions Nation, right? We talking to the proud, right?
Right.
Proud, right? What's your day start like?
We have our Proud Nation, definitely Lions on the Prowl. So yesterday, as I said, I woke up terrible, like migraine. It was like horrible. I had to take a nap probably around 10:30, 11 o'clock. Before that, I talked to my broadcast partner, Jim, wished him a happy birthday. He had a birthday on Saturday. And
I sent him a happy birthday wish as well. So
we'll do. drink some water, had some coffee, trying to get my mind clear. It was just so foggy. Got up around the afternoon. It was probably around 12:30. Made some lunch. It's like, okay, I'm gonna get some lunch and get some food in me. Hopefully this thing, take some more medicine and this migraine will subside. It started getting a little less, but it was still like aggravating. Game time. I was like, well, it's game time now. I ain't worried about the headache no more. It's just gonna be what it is. But gotta watch this game.
But it's gonna start off like that normally, though, right? I mean, this is just something that it wasn't coincidental because it was a day of a Lions game.
No, it was just one of those. It was just one of the has had a migraine. I don't know what that was yesterday. It was hard. And I usually don't get migraines, so that's why it was so difficult for me yesterday to kind of deal with that. Just because of the fact that it was like I was nauseous. I was in a bad way. But I was like, okay, it's game time. We can get through this, and I can go watch the game. Game started, and I was like, okay, we're gonna be okay. And started off kind of rough. My feelings were like, okay, we got to get this defense going. I was like, we're competing, but we're giving up too many opportunities to them, and they're kind of missing them. So we have to play better. The defense was playing good, and I would say the offense. I said this earlier. If you play chess, there's a couple of moves. We call it a dunce defense, or they call it the King's Knight, where the white pieces are going on the offense first, where they're actually attacking and not just defending. And I think that's the offense. You need to go out there and attack. If you stick back there and just wait for the defense and you're being more reactive than proactive, then you're gonna dig yourself into a hole. And we did that. We've been doing that the last couple of games. We did that in the first game. The second game we came out and I like the way we came out against Green Bay, and I wish we would have did that against Baltimore because they had so many injuries. And I was like, come on, man, we got to get this thing going. Get those backs. Get DeAndre Swift in the game. Get him going. They're going to take away TJ Hawkinson. I knew that was going to be the game plan because that's how that Harbaugh defense in Baltimore works. They're going to take away that key weapon. Lo and behold, they took away Hawkinson. Go somewhere else. Stop trying to force the ball to TJ. And they were doing that relentlessly all throughout that first half. When we got DeAndre Swift and we got those backs in the game, start running that ball, I was liking the way the offense was moving.
Right. You mentioned that. I know we have people joining in. I appreciate everything. King, a man joining us, coming in, giving a little bit of comment and thought. The first half. Let's take it back just to the first half. This was a team that struggled on the offensive side of the ball, getting first downs. And to only be down by 10, I think, was a feat in itself. Given the fact that you talked about Hollywood Brown and how there were two really big drops. There are other drops. There was other plays, but the tight end would still continue to create damage and destroy the secondary, finding those little areas to get open. Yeah. But I did feel that the adjustments in the second half were made. All right, despite what happened in that first half, things were just kind of you're at home. I won't call it a disastrous first half, but I felt that is one, just as everything King said, like they gave it up there. And then to come back, we can look at, we'll get later in the game. We talk about that fourth down and 19 or whatever it was, and they convert on that. All right. Referees had nothing to do with that piece, right? It happened. Those things can't happen. But if they play better in the first half, perhaps they come away with some points. Maybe the game's a little bit closer, but they made the adjustments to their defense. Right. You had the offensive coordinator, Lynn. You had the defensive coordinator, Glenn. They both made some changes. And to your point again, they attacked. And I enjoyed seeing the fact that this was a team that was attacking offensively and defensively. They decided to bring pressure. They decided not to worry about what Lamar Jackson was going to do on the ground. It was always what we talk about. They're going to rush and they're going to try and get to him on their way in to the backfield. And I think that gave them, some hope. And that's what we start to see turn the tide a little bit, in my opinion, in the second half. I want to get your thought on that.
Yeah, definitely. I like the defense that Aaron Glenn called. AG did a great job with the second half adjustments, bringing the pressure off the edge. Anzalone bringing him off the edge and having Reeves Maven and Derek Barnes, you have the three traditional off the ball linebackers in the game at the same time, was a great adjustment. You look at it, they just start bringing the fire. And I would have to say, for that game, the Lions did a good job of keeping Lamar Jackson contained with the outs on the outside, where he had a few runs that were pretty decent, but for the most part, they set the edge pretty well on the defensive line, outside linebackers, corners, and my guy, the phenomenal Mr. AJ Parker. I love his run support. That young undrafted free agent,
nice, right? I mean, these guys were coming down out of the secondary and being aggressive at the line of scrimmage. We hadn't seen that. And I thought that made a big difference too, because that's adding to that line of scrimmage. They weren't getting to the second level. These guys were coming down, giving that run support. And that's what you got to see from your safeties. That's what you got to see from the edge. And you got to see from your corners. So that's a very good point.
I mean, they held one of the best rushing offenses in the league to about half of what they averaged. They averaged over 200 yards a game, and they were just over 100 for this game. So they did a good job containing the run game. Right. And I just think that like I said, Aaron Glenn made the great adjustments. Anthony Lynn, on the other hand, awesome adjustments. Getting DeAndre Swift, I love the way they attacked on the perimeter with him. You're not going to attack Baltimore in the middle of that defensive line. It's just not going to happen. Calais Campbell hit DeAndre Swift so hard, I felt it one time to try to go through the middle. But you have to attack the perimeter, especially with their a lot of their senior corners being out. Jimmy Smith's come back for his first game, but Marcus Peters and a lot of those guys that don't normally be there, some of those edge rushers on the end, they were out. A lot of that COVID protocol caught a lot of that defense out, so you had to attack the edges. And I like the way that Anthony Lynn made that adjustment. DeAndre Swift and Khalif Raymond. What can you say about that young man? That guy has a pair of hands on him, and he's so small. He disappeared behind the linebackers. You have to find that guy out there, but he's did a great job catching the ball, or dominant in the rough for us. Picking him up from Tennessee. I just like what he's bringing to the field. People thought he was just going to be a return guy when we got him from Tennessee, but he's turned to be a valuable weapon in the offensive scheme.
All right, yeah, you talk about Raymond, and he's one of those players that stepped in because everyone focused on Hawkinson, and we know that's coming. It's not that we knew it was coming. We know it was already there. The Ravens already had in their game plan. They weren't going to let TJ get much. That's why we didn't see him. I know a lot of people are like he's disappearing. No, he's getting coverage, which means somebody else has to step up. The running game stepped up. The running back stepped up out of the backfield. They were making some great quick swing passes and little flare out passes to the running backs, to both Williams and to Swift. And what I enjoyed is that when you get the ball out to them and they're singled out one-on-one with a linebacker or a defensive back or a safety, that's typically going to be some more yards after that initial contact, because Swift is not an easy guy to bring down. Williams is not an easy guy to bring down on that first contact. And we saw them really scrape and scratch and claw for more yardage. And that's the attitude and the effort that I think we saw. When you look at there's comments that are coming in through the thread, and a lot of people said, this was a team that it seemed like there was a different energy. There was a comment even about how when they brought, Collins wasn't going to be there, and you all of a sudden had to go with Maben and you had to go with Banks. All of a sudden it felt like the energy level at the linebacker position was intensified. And that makes a big difference when teams are facing a team like Baltimore, which is going to bring that. And you have the electricity, and you have the energy of the crowd behind you. So that was awesome to see as well.
You look at, I said this earlier today. I said DeAndre Swift took some kneecaps, some ankles, and a whole bunch of things on some of them linebackers. Some of the moves that he made were great. You look at what he did. I mean, I swear there had to be some shorts laying on the field, because he definitely shook some guys out of him yesterday on that down on the sideline. Linebacker, I mean, he just Swift. I mean, you thought he had him down. You had two linebackers converging on Swift. He just, made a move and scored through both of them. I like his intensity. He's a mismatch in the passing game, definitely coming out of the backfield. I mean, if you remember him, I've said this repeatedly, if you remember him in college, you have to remember he started out in Georgia as a slot receiver. He was behind Nick Chubb.
He has good hands. So to me, that doesn't come to me as a surprise.
Because he was behind Gurley and Nick Chubb and all those guys. So to get on the field, he played slot receiver for Georgia until he was able to get his chance at running back. So that makes him so much more dangerous as a complete back, running the ball and catching the ball out of the backfield. So I love what DeAndre Swift brings to the field. it was just so good to watch them attack the perimeter of that Baltimore defense, which was, weakened, and you can take advantage of that. It was really good to see in the second half. I'm liking the Swifty and Swaggy show. You get those guys involved, and they definitely can make a difference. If you get them involved the whole game, I really like that.
Coach Campbell had made some comments. I'd seen this and had the opportunity and the privilege to speak with him during training camp. And one of the things that he thought is this is a team that has more than people realize. They may not have the household names. They may not have the talent. And they're going to be figuring out some things along the way, which I think we see. If this may be the most inspiring 0-3 I've seen in a while for the Lions, because I want to put this in perspective for some people. When they're thinking about the Lions right now, and you're thinking about where is this team, and it's an 0-3 team. Hey, this team hasn't won, and same old. No, it's not. Because here's what I see: if they can be this competitive, if they can play against Green Bay, San Fran, and just finish wrapping up with Baltimore, and play as competitive as they played, minus some really key pieces, big play wide receiver, really needing to solidify the defensive secondary. They're lacking a strong kicking game because they're trying to figure that out. And yet they're in an opportunity to win the last 3 games. There was an opportunity to win these last 3 games.
Right.
Imagine when they imagine the confidence that's being built right now. And as you start to add those other pieces as you go along, what is that going to mean to this team? What does it mean to the foundation? Because this foundation won't have to catch up, because it already knows how to play with basically the minimums, right? They know how to play with not having everyone functioning, with losing a top corner like a Curt, right? And having to make some switches and try and figure things out as the season starts. So when I see that, how does that make you feel? When you add those pieces, and all of a sudden, this is a different conversation we're having with this football team.
It's definitely encouraging. I mean, even looking toward the future of this franchise. I mean, even looking at beyond this year, I've made this statement. The Lions have what they want. They have some of the pieces they're in place, and they have a lot of draft capital. They have. Imagine how good this team is going to be when they get who they want, and not just what they want. They have a lot of what they want right now, but when they start getting the who they want, you start bringing in some bigger name free agents and guys who have the right attitude, and guys who want to play, and guys who are ferocious and they never want to give up. Those are the guys that they want on this team. They have that type of player, but not just the fact that they don't quite have who they want, but they have what they want. And you start mixing that what they want into who they want, this team is going to be dangerous. And I think we're going to have definitely a turnaround here in Detroit. One thing I would definitely say is that I really congratulate. I know she got booed yesterday, and that was a terrible sight. I really applaud Sheila Ford Hamp and what she's done with this franchise. She's changed how this franchise operates from the top down. If you look at some of the moves she's made, bringing in Chris Spillman, your teammate, bringing them in their front office, helping making some of the hires. You have the people in the front office. Not only do you have youth, but you have experience. You have a John Dorsey to mix with a young Brad Holmes. Then even on the coaching staff, you have a young guy like Aaron Glenn, first-time defensive coordinator. Who you bring in? You bring in Don Capers. You have a first-time head coach, Dan Campbell. Who's his OC? Anthony Lamb, former head coach. And I like the way that it's built top to bottom. And once you start getting that, putting the other things on top of this foundation, as far as the personnel-wise, I really like what we have going forward here in Detroit.
I was going to address that component. I know a lot of people who were there. At first, they thought they didn't understand what the booing was about, and then they realized it was, for the ownership. It's tough to see. It's tough. It's all one, but at some point, the fans want to have all the distractions go away. They want to have the focus be around the team, around the organization, around really, a lot of times I think it's misunderstood the importance of what the alumni mean to organizations. I've been around the league and I've seen a lot of teams, and we've talked to a lot of those that feel welcome. There's a lot of those who feel that the fairness is there. This is a business. So everyone has to understand that this is a business. There's going to be some ill will. There's going to be some that feel that there was some injustice and some unfairness that taken place.
Right.
But I do believe that when you have a player with such visibility like a Calvin Johnson,
right,
there's something you have to do, or that I would imagine both would take aside and say, listen, let's make a real effort to heal this process, because there's an ownership that the fans take in all that they've exercised and all the time they spent, not just supporting this organization, but they will support players like Calvin Johnson. They support the guys like Barry Sanders. They support these guys that are they're Hall of Famers and those that really try and bring dignity and bring just kind of an elevation to this organization. So there is a mend that needs to take place there. I hope personally that it does, because I think he's a person who's just beloved and someone that is real respected, not only just here in Michigan, but throughout the country.
right.
Calvin's highly respected. So I think that for this organization to take that next step, and also to show their current players and even some of their former alum that, we can put what I would consider the petty behind this. And I know people are saying, hey, Calvin's got to step up and do that as well. I mean, I don't want to get into who's right and who's wrong, but I do know this. I think he's made the effort. He said, here's what I'm willing to take a look at. The team needs to just evaluate that. So I hope that the fans are able to enjoy this. You don't have to pick between the player and your team, right?
No, that's very tough. I've had this discussion plenty of times, and I've seen both sides of the coin. You look at it, but I think that it was promising to see that yesterday, because if you look at this a few months ago, you wouldn't even thought that would have happened yesterday, where they would have had the ring ceremony at Ford Field. I think this is his first time being in Ford Field since he's retired from the Lions. So at least that's promising. I think eventually everything will get worked out. I just think that you're going to have to get Mike Disner in there and work his magic. Our cap specialist, and to make sure, so we can get this thing worked out and make sure it's financially viable for the team, because we know there are salary cap implications to giving Calvin, or repaying that money back to Calvin. So we're gonna have to look at it. It's holistically. It's not just an easy fix where I know what Calvin, what he said, and I know what the Forge are saying, but it's gonna have to be worked out. But I think it's promising to see that going forward. I like the fact that he was there, and I like the fact he addressed the fans. He's always said the fans always motivated him in Detroit. Now, they always showed up, even when they were 0-16. And I watched that whole season, and it was gut-wrenching because they were competitive. They're kind of like this team. They were in every game, but they just happened to just fall short. I hope that we can get this team on track. And I doubt that we go 0-17. I don't think that's going to happen this year. But I love what they're doing, Big Ferg, with the divorce. We've had that discussion plenty of times. It's just one of those things, but I like where it's going. And I think that they're going to make it a better. And I applaud Sheila Ford Hemp and what she's doing going forward.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I know the fans and those that are trying to bring this together appreciate that. One thing I wanted to talk about, I know we talk about where this team currently sits. And I will address I won't call it the elephant in the room. It's the male lion. It's the king of the jungle that's in the room. Did you watch the game with Matthew Stafford and the Rams? How
oh my God! Yes.
How closely are you following his career and looking at what's taking place with Jared Goff? Yeah. I mean, I won't ask you to compare the two, because I think that's a disservice and that's unfair to Jared Goff, because I don't think you're playing with the same type of chemistry and the same type of support, right? But when you see that, I just want to know, what are your thoughts as a viewer, as a fan, a supporter of this organization and this team, when you see Matt Stafford, the success he's having out with LA?
I wish him all the best. I did watch that game, and I was like, okay, do you think this is what I've seen his whole career? So it didn't surprise me whatsoever. To all these pundits who say, oh man, I didn't know he was that good. He's always been that good. Stafford's always been that guy, and we've had a lot of people say that, they were wanting to be gone or whatever. Jared Goff's my quarterback. I'm the guy that, I'm a Lions fan. You won't see me rocking a Los Angeles Rams jersey with number 9 on the back for Stafford. Nah, I'm not. That's not me. I like Matthew Stafford. I'll still continue to follow his career, but I root for his personal success because I don't have any animosity towards Matthew Stafford because he gave everything to Detroit. The guy played hurt. I mean, and just the charity work he did in the city of Detroit. A lot of things he did, not even just on the field, but off the field. So I have no ill will feeling towards Matthew Stafford. But Jared Goff's my quarterback, and I'm rolling with number 16. He's the guy behind center in Detroit, and that's what I'm rolling with. But, the success he's having out there in LA, I mean, good. I mean, I don't wish him any ill will.
Okay, so having said that, then what are you hearing or what are you seeing from the fans? That's your personal take,
Right.
About not just Jared Goff. I know he's kind of a big talking point, but in general, what are you hearing from the fans as it relates to this team?
As it relates to the Lions,
The Lions team.
Yeah, it's a work in progress. You have a roster that has a lot of inexperience on it. I didn't, me myself personally, I picked the Lions to win about between 5 to 7 games this season, just because if you look at the schedule and you look at the roster, a lot of turnover. It's so much turnover in Detroit, not only on the roster, but you had a complete coaching overhaul, a complete management overhaul. So, and you look at the roster, they got rid of a lot of dead cap. They have a lot of dead cap space out there because a lot of the players that were here last year are not here because they had to really dump those contracts. And that's just not going to make for a winning recipe for that first year under Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes. But it's promising for me. And you see a lot of people going to say, oh, it's the same old Lions. You're going to have that bag, and you're going to have the guys who are like, this is a promising team. They're this young. They get some experience. And that's why I think a lot of people favored that Derek Barnes situation where they wanted to see him play, because how is he going to get experience by sitting on the bench? He's not. Penei Sewell's out there playing. You got to get Derek Barnes out there playing as well. You got the 2 young fellas on the defensive line, Anzarike and Aleem McNeil playing. Get the young fella, get Derek Barnes out there. And until he went down, I will have to say that Melifonwu, or as we call him, Iffy, that guy is going to be very special in the league. Yeah. Long, fast, and he has fluid movement for a cornerback his size.
Yeah, something I made a comment on yesterday was this. As a former player, when you make plays, it becomes kind of normal. It starts to become the norm. When you're not making plays, it's just this anxiety that takes place until it happens. Right. I think that's going to occur, not necessarily with them trying to get this first win, but when you talk about this team, this defense getting their first interception. Okay, I get it. When they start making sacks and they start getting in the backfield, they start bringing down a mobile quarterback like Lamar Jackson. What do you think they see? You think they're licking their chops and they're thinking about these are animals at a watering hole when they see other quarterbacks that aren't as mobile, that don't move as good. So I think the confidence that's being built. So when I hear people say the same old Lions, and while on one end I go, I understand why you're saying it, but I don't think you can validate it because you're just saying something out of emotion. Mine is if you're actually watching this football team, they're not the most talented, they're not the most gifted, but to do what they're doing and being as competitive as they are with what the state of this team is in right now and coming out of preseason, I don't know if you could have asked for much more than that, other than, hopefully they win a game or two that they had an opportunity to win.
Right. Look at the next game. You were saying licking their chops. You're looking at Chicago. Chicago had 47 yards of offense yesterday versus the Cleveland Browns. That is a league low, I think, since the 50s. And they sacked what I think feels like 9 times or something like that yesterday. They're licking their chops. The Lions defensive line, and they're getting pressure on the quarterback. So I'm thinking that they're going to be one of those teams that are going to cause some trouble down the line. Right. We get everything together. We're getting some pieces back here and there. You got Decker going to be coming back here shortly. You're going to get Jashawn Cornell is going to be coming back. Deshaun Hand is going to be coming back, and some of those more rotational defensive linemen is going to be some tough personnel calls. Who you going to let go and how they're going to be brought into this defense. But if we can get those guys in, and I still think we need to bring in. I like the young secondary, but I think we still need to have a veteran presence. I would like to see a safety. get picked up or something like that somewhere to add to that veteran presence back there in the backfield. But I'm loving the fight in this team. That's one thing you don't. A lot of times, the last couple of years, this team would have just folded over in those last couple of games. But the fight, and it's not just from like one player; it's the fight of the team. And I like the way that Dan Campbell is coaching these guys.
All right, no, I agree with that. But we'll start to wrap up. But I have to ask this last one.
Okay.
Get ready to line up for a field goal. You got a kicker that's coming in. His longest field goal isn't even, I think it wasn't even over 30.
20 yards, yeah.
What's going through your mind?
Oh, I was like, come on. and they kept showing him.
I'm gonna tell you this, seriously, I was sitting there going, wait a minute, how did we get here? Wait a minute.
Yes.
I mean, my brain's on overload because I know we got all these other things that are taking place. The last thing I was worried about is, okay, we got a field goal kicker and he hasn't kicked over what?
Yeah, 29 yards was his longest field goal before the game yesterday. And I'm looking at that. It is an extra point. It's like 35 yards. But a lot of fans and some pundits would say that the Lions should went for the touchdown instead of giving the ball back to the Ravens. But hey, if he made the field goal, I'm proud of him. That's all I can say. I'm proud of you.
On TV, they started showing all of his
all the misses.
And I was sitting there going, you know what, man, do I need to come back? I know I used to be a kicker. So okay. I was like, maybe, we saw Dominic and Sue come out and have to do some special kicking. I was like, man, are we there? Are we there again?
It was, I mean, I almost had to catch a flight to see if I could do something. But
yeah, and the Ravens over here with Tucker going, he's kicked 61 yarders here. He's kicked, all these other. He hasn't missed since forever. And I'm like, wait a minute. This is not a good narrative, man.
It is not. But you know what? He did his job and he made the field goal. And unfortunately, Justin Tucker did his job. I mean, 66 yards and for it to hit the crossbar and go over is the NFL doink for a field goal record. I have to give Justin Tucker his due because there is not a kicker in the NFL that will make that kick. 100. Never. Yeah. Never.
You had to have some ice in your veins on that one because the world is watching you at that point. And if you're in front of the Lions fans and you're in front of the nation, Lions Nation like that, and we're looking at all the people that are dedicated to this, and they're going, it's in your hands. It's in your foot. Yeah, that's got to be, I don't know if I would have handled that one too well.
It was, you look at the videos all over social media and the fan, this kind of just in shock. The whole stadium was in shock. That it hit the crossbar and just went over. And I was at home. I had my hands on my knees looking there. I would have the Dan Campbell pose. You see how Dan Campbell had his hands on the knee looking down? That's exactly what I was doing because I was standing up. I was like, man, that's crazy. Yeah, but
I know.
It's one of those things where you're gonna have to take the lumps, but you just can't. To me, into the NFL, into the officiating crew, that those are two calls. At the end of the game, you just cannot miss. You cannot miss a false start, and you cannot miss a delay of game.
Correct.
It's just and people will say, "Well, we didn't do enough." And we talked about earlier the fourth and 19. You cannot allow that to be converted. That's one thing. Will Harris was just on the wrong. He's on the wrong page. He played good in the run support, but in coverage, he just has a little something that needs to be fixed, but. You can't allow 4th and 19 at that time of a game to be converted that far down the field to a wide open wide receiver. Sammy Watkins is a good player. You don't leave that guy out.
Yeah, you're typically going to want to see your secondary and the linebackers, everyone play the marker, play the chains. And then even at that point, if Lamar has to run and you just get enough pressure to force him out of the pocket, he's not going to get those 19 yards with many people. If he doesn't, he deserves it. But you know what?
I didn't understand the defense at that time. I didn't understand the defense. We only rushed 3. You should have rushed 4. You were getting their home at 4. Right. Just keep that same energy. That's you rush 4 and try to and force him to make a play.
Yeah, it's it was definitely one of those same old officiating games. I'll give them that. But but as it relates to this team, I think there's a lot more left to come. I think they're building something pretty special, given even the fact that I don't think they have the talent at this time to compete at the highest of level, but I do believe they're setting a foundation that's going to provide them a great future and for the Lion fans to be able to follow. Well, Curt, I really appreciate you jumping on. I appreciate everybody participating today on that. Curt Steele with Detroit Lions on the Prowl. Appreciate it. And I appreciate all the Lions Nation fans that are out there as well. Come out. We're going to be doing this every week. We love getting your perspective from those of you who are at the game, those that have dedicated their time and their attention and their money and their resources to really following this team and supporting it and supporting our fan base. So thanks for all that you do. Continue the great work. And we'll see everybody next time on More After Game.